Well, hello. Let's talk about balance, shall we? You see, this video started off as kind of my usual, description of my painting adventure, getting this guy tabletop ready. And that was a plan. I did a lot of filming of me taking care of this guy after his magnetization journey. And as I was putting it together, I had to deal with some feelings of, I don't know, maybe guilt is the right way of thinking about it. Or it's something like guilt. You see, it took me a long time to get this project finished. And it really wasn't that big of a project. After the magnetization, the painting kind of went quickly. It's not that big of a deal. It's a big model, but the painting wasn't that much. It's pretty straightforward. But still, somehow, it took me a lot of time. Well, you see, life has this way of getting in the way of, at least for me, painting Warhammer 40k. I used to have a lot more time, and I was able to devote a lot of it to doing this stuff. So I had to kind of grapple with these feelings of, do I really have time for Warhammer 40k? Do I just have to kind of buckle down and get this done? How do I speed up my project so that they spend less time on my desk, my work surface, and more time on my display shelf, kind of hanging out with its other buddies? And I realized I was thinking about this kind of in the wrong way, in a less than healthy way. So I thought, maybe for this video, we'll talk a little bit about balance, about where our favorite hobby kind of fits in with the rest of our lives so that they don't compete with each other, but rather supplement each other. Yeah, why not? So, hello and welcome to Your Average Bear Gaming. I am George. Today, we'll talk a little bit about painting this guy, the Imperial Knight, Dominus? It's a kit that creates the Castellan and the Valliant variants of among the biggest, I think, Imperial Knights models for the Imperial side of the army. Anyway, I'm not really sure about the Chaos versions of these. But more importantly, we'll talk about finding the right balance for you. Maybe you need it, maybe you don't, but I know I need it, and maybe if I do, some of you do as well. Alright, so here's the plan for this video. I'll talk a little bit about how I got around to painting this guy, but in the middle of it I'll talk a little bit about balance and kind of how life gets in the way and how you can maybe kind of make them both work. But that way it's not just me talking at you, it's me talking at you, but also with painting going on in the background. It seems reasonable to me. I hope it's helpful for you as well. So I'll kind of talk about it in general because I'm not going to give you a blow-by-blow, but in the background you'll see images of me painting the model, weeks ago. And you'll see now what the end result looks like. It looks like this. It looks pretty decent, pretty intimidating, I think. Basically, I took it as two halves, but not in the traditional kind of top and bottom or left or right side halves. It's kind of an interior and exterior half kind of a project. You see, for a lot of these models, at least this one and the two armatures that I've painted so far, there's kind of an inside and an outside to them. And I have found, at least so far, that you can approach this in an inside-outside way to kind of get a really good-looking model without a ton of work, which is important to me and probably to some of you watching. You see, this guy is composed of kind of an inner skeleton. That inner skeleton is all mechanicals, the stuff that makes the arms go, move from up and down, the legs kind of pumping, the torso, doing torso things. And that's all mechanical stuff, and that's stuff that you need to paint because you can see a lot of it, but you don't see all of it. On top of all those internals, you see kind of this shell, right? It's all the armor that goes and protects a lot of those internals. If you take a good look at all these internals, you see that there's a lot of detail happening, right? And here, I took off the arm weapons so you can get a better sense of what it looks like inside, and you can get a better sense of what I'm talking about. There's a lot of detail happening, and you can spend hours and hours and hours just getting all those details right to pop in just the right way. But I know I don't have hours to devote to something like this. And quite frankly, even if I tried, I'm not good enough to make the hours and hours I would spend on it. I don't have the skill to make it look good to justify the amount of time I've spent on it. So the approach I took was to take all those internals, all the stuff underneath the armor, and just dry brush it, right? Start off with your favorite black primer. You spray everything down, and everything that's not armor gets a nice dry brushing. I tried something that didn't quite work out, but maybe it did. I can't tell, really. I tried 2 different tones of metallic silver. I tried like a very dark metallic silver as my initial, more generous mid-tone kind of a dry brush. And then once that dried, I went over just kind of the top surfaces with brighter, shinier kind of silver. And what I ended up with was basically just a silver metallic. So I don't know that spending the extra time, at least not when you're dealing with actual metallic paints, I don't know that doing that is gonna, doing that, what I mean is like using the 2 different shades of the same color, I don't know that it's gonna be that effective. Maybe if you're doing like, a metallic gold or metallic bronze, you can highlight it with like a metallic silver. That works. I've done that before, and it does work pretty well. It kind of softens the gold, the yellow color, and it really reads as highlights. That really didn't happen here, and that's okay. It was an experiment. It didn't work, but it doesn't look bad. I just spent a little bit of extra time for not much of a extra in terms of results. That's fine. I just won't do it again. I will say that dry brushing, it went by quick, man. It was so quick. I really enjoyed the process. It looked really sharp, and I was kind of thinking, man, it's a shame to cover this up with my clumsy painting. But, I was going to do it anyway. But yeah, it was so quick that it took me, I don't know, maybe half an hour to get it all done. And it looked pretty good. I cannot complain about those results. The stuff that took a little bit longer, that was all the stuff that you see now here. It was essentially all the carapace, all the armor, all the stuff that is purple or bone white. Yeah, that stuff took a little bit longer, not because there was a ton of it. There kind of is, but I feel like if you paint something like a tank, it seems like there's more of that than there is here because, the armor is covering the internals. There's a lot of internals still showing, and those aren't covered up, and, the internals were painted pretty quick with a dry brush. This stuff was layer painted on, and it wasn't as quick. But it wasn't all that bad either. The thing that took longer than I expected was to get the colors to look good. I used multiple coats. I mean, more than the usual 2 and sometimes 3, especially for details like that. This bone white, these little accents, that was hard to make look good. It's just a very light color, and over a black, or sometimes like this was started off as purple, to paint over this with bone white, it's a little tough. And so I ended up using kind of a lot more coats of this stuff than I was expecting. But in the end, it looks okay. It doesn't look great, but it looks okay, and sometimes okay is fine. And while I show you some of the video of me applying some of these layer paints, I just want to briefly talk about this balance thing that I introduced the video with. With the past few weeks, really the time since I started this project, life got interesting in a great way. I mean, not all the way great, but work has been exciting, tough, soul-killy a little bit. There's just a lot of work to do and not a whole lot of time to do it, which means that, every weekend extra I spend working is a weekend I didn't spend painting cool guns for my brand new models. And there was a few of these, and they were pretty cool to paint. I also, got a little bit of work done. My teeth had been just in a really bad spot, and now, man, they look great. Worth every one of the lots and lots of pennies I spent on it. This is good for my health. It's good for social interactions. It's probably good for my job because, let's face it, no matter how bright you are, it's always a little nicer to work with someone with a nice smile than what I was working with before. So, yeah, it's superficial, but we're humans, and that's just the way we're wired, so we can, suffer through it, or we can take advantage of it. I know which way I thought was the best, and I went with it. So, but probably the most important thing that's happened in the past few weeks has been, meeting a nice lady that for some reason thinks I'm a catch. I'm not going to disabuse her of that notion, but that means I'm spending a lot more time, on the phone, texting, the occasional visits, and yeah, it gets in the way of painting Warhammer 40k, but to be honest, I love me some 40k. I much, much prefer spending time with someone that there could be a future with. It's something that I've been missing in my life for a while, and I'm super happy that I've found it. And I hope that wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you have gone through, that you find someone that works well for you. But as a result of all of that stuff, I found myself not having much time to spend painting. And for a while, I felt a little weird about it. I felt kind of like, oh, I'm letting down the 12 people that enjoy my content on YouTube. I'm letting down my collection. I'm letting down my hobby. I'm letting down. Negative thoughts. And it's not great. And it leads to bad places for some of us. So, as has become my, mental strategy, my coping strategy, is I try to recontextualize those thoughts. Yes, I wasn't spending as much time on this hobby that I enjoy because I'm spending it on something I enjoy more. And that isn't always as obvious as we might like. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we were put on this planet to do stuff other than, Warhammer 40k. Don't get me wrong, this is fantastic, this is cool, I'm glad this is in my life, but there's other things, there's other parts of me, there's other parts of you that are also important. You gotta keep them fed, you gotta keep them watered, you gotta, take them for walks. I'm talking about my dog right now. Hang on. See? Here's my shaggy little friend. He doesn't care about you, but he cares about me, and I care about him. He's another part of my life. He's an important part of my life. More important than an Imperial Knight, no matter how big and stompy he might be. You want to play with this? You want to play with this? No? Okay, Raleigh is unimpressed with big guns. That's fine. I'm impressed by big guns. He's also apparently very skeptical about being used as a prop for my videos. Are you done being exploited, kid? Do you want no part of this? Alright, I'm gonna set him down. But what I was able to do is, when I found myself having an extra half hour here, an extra hour there, I, spent it doing other things, maybe playing a few video games, maybe watching a little YouTube, and occasionally adding a grass tuft or two to this base that I think looks pretty awesome. Adding some decals, or maybe fighting with decals so that they'll stick somewhere on this behemoth. And eventually, weeks later, I got the job done. And honestly, he doesn't look half bad. Could he have been better? Absolutely. But not much. This is probably right at the ceiling of my current skill level, and that's okay too. I think he looks pretty awesome, and I think he looks even more awesome next to his tiny little friends. And I say tiny, these are actually pretty big models. It's the beginnings of an Imperial Knights army. You'll notice that these guys look a bit different from this guy. The bone white is a lot cleaner. I've relied less and less on stains. I still really like these armigers, but this guy looks even better, I think. And together, with a few more of their buddies, I think it's going to be a very nice collection of Imperial Knights. You know, giving myself the extra time to do this, you know, when I can fit it into my already pretty busy life, I think it was a more positive experience. I didn't have to go out immediately and buy new models to paint because I had finished my projects in the week like I initially planned to. So it's a little more accessible, if you know what I mean. Warhammer is not a cheap hobby. This helps me kind of stretch it out. But also I was able to take more care with those last few steps. Normally, as you see with these armigers, which I really, really enjoyed putting together and painting and all that kind of good stuff, you'll notice that they have 0 decals, none whatsoever. This guy has a few decals in just little strategic spots just to give it a kind of a splash of color, a splash of something. Now, I didn't do a great job. You'll notice that these Aquila are aligned improperly. They should be aligned with that little they should be aligned with that little triangle trident thing here so that begins right there. I didn't realize that until once they were on, and I haven't had a great experience taking these things off once they're on the model. So, you know what? That's fine. They look just fine, and maybe my Imperial Knights are just a little on the weird side. That's okay too. I will say, learning to use decals on my models has been kind of a frustrating, but also kind of a positive experience. It was that last piece of my modeling toolkit that I had been just dreading and really not comfortable with, but it's not that hard. It is definitely one of those skills that you have to kind of practice to master, and sometimes it's just not going to work the way you want it to. But that's okay, right? We keep practicing, we keep doing things until we get better, and we go, man, this is pretty cool looking. Certainly better, I think, than a model without decals. But for all the results, I can tell you, it's a kind of a steep learning curve. At least it has been for me. I ruined a few of the decals I was trying to put on. Some of the paints that were underneath them I had to kind of reapply because the solutions I was using to get them on there kind of eroded some of the acrylic paints underneath it. It was a process. But I'm glad I did it because I'm getting better at it. And the more of these I do, the better I will get. I'm here for that. And honestly, that's all I've got. This was a short video. This was kind of filled with fluff, mostly because I wanted to just get this off my chest and hopefully, I don't know, maybe I'll reach one or two of you out there that are kind of having a similar experience where you're kind of like, I'm not sure how to fit this into your other life, or you find yourself getting irritated with other elements of your life, kind of intruding on your Warhammer 40k life. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to take longer on projects. Enjoy your life. This is part of enjoying your life, but it is just a part of enjoying your life. You are not probably a YouTube content creator cranking these out on a weekly basis, or like some of those madmen. I'm thinking about you, Jay, from Eons of Battle, putting out 3 videos a week, and every time it's like a new model that he's got painted, or like another surprise army. Hey, look what I did this week, and there's like 80 new models that are immaculately painted. You're not those guys, and that's fine too. You've got lives. You've got hobbies, you've got love partners, you've got all kinds of stuff. And that's not to say that those guys don't, but those professionals that a part of your like irrational brain, right? Because we all have that rational piece and that irrational piece. Maybe those guys you're comparing yourselves against, well, They're professionals. They do this for a living. Every time they paint a new model, they have video or they have something to talk about. You have to go to work. You have to go to the garage. You have to go to the office. You have to go to the whatever it is that you do. That's how you make the money to do this stuff. So don't let it get you down. Don't let it get you down, man. It'll be fine. There's plenty of time for all those things. Enjoy Warhammer 40k in the context of everything else in your life. And you won't get any more of these gray hairs. Man, there's a lot of these. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. Be nice to yourselves and each other. Peace.